it freaked me out, to be honest, because all-nighters were something I had not dealt with even at the start of this. And they were scary. One of the things, for some reason, like if I was up all night and then the sun came up, I don't know why, I dreaded that. And it made me feel, I felt, again, there's something wrong with me, and I was thinking at that point, like, even these really cool people in this really cool program, and I learned these great concepts, it's just, I'm failing this, like I failed CBT-I first. So that was another little bit of a low point. But again, looking back, there was a lot. I remember talking with the coaches in the immunity program and yourself and sharing what was going on without realizing. They'd say, well, you realize you're really kind of tracking your sleep, and you're really chasing sleep is the term that we use, but it got bad. I was in a dark place at that point. And when we spoke, you had kind of filled in the gaps of what I had seen online. So I knew some of it, but I didn't know all of it. And it just made so much sense to me. And I felt like a weight had lifted off of my shoulders. So if you're being hard on yourself, I can't believe you, it's really not possible to really experience the emotions and the experience that you're having, which is the way they kind of dissipate, not fighting it, not trying to figure it out, but just almost just being there. So and so that's why that was a big step for me, big step to realize that, because it's not comfortable. Sometimes you don't want to face things that are uncomfortable, but the harder lessons are the more important ones, I think, and the more valuable ones.
Hi, community. Welcome to another very special episode of Talking Insomnia. I have Patrick with me today, and I'm so happy that you have joined me today and are going to be sharing your recovery story with the community. I feel really grateful to be the one doing this interview, because I really have seen your whole progression as we started together and you were on the yellow team in the immunity program. So I'm just really happy and grateful that you're here with us today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Allie. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm very happy to be talking with you, because you've helped me so much, and you were the first person I spoke to at the sleep coach school, and filled in so many blanks for me about what was going on with me, which eventually led to my recovery, and I'm grateful for that. And that's why I'm here, hoping that I can give back, because I know that other people's success stories really help me, and I hope that this can help people as well.
They really do. They help the community so much. I remember them being a lifeline during my recovery as well. So thank you. It's really, really wonderful that you're here. And without further ado, let's just jump right in, and you can start telling us your story. How did insomnia start for you, Patrick?
So what happened to me was in my late 50s, I was a middle school science teacher planning to retire, and it was the holidays of 2023. So a little over a year ago. Unfortunately, I had a health scare. I had an ulcer that basically went undiagnosed for a while. We knew I had some pain. I had gone to the ER a couple of times. The diagnostics they didn't show it, didn't have some of the typical signs. Until I was actually at work and almost passed out and went, to the ER. Ulcers are usually not a big deal nowadays. They even thought they were going to just treat it with medication at first. So long story short about that is it didn't work. And the problem in this case was there was an artery involved. Just the location of it was bad. And I ended up in the hospital. They tried a couple of minor procedures, and each time they said, you're going to be good to go and you can go home. And they didn't work. And that artery was back involved. And I ended up, having a couple of, just horrible incidents where, almost like bleed outs, I guess, kind of, and blood transfusion involved, and alarms going off and people there. And so that was scary. It was a trauma. Yeah. I was in the hospital almost 3 weeks, and most of that time I wasn't eating, because in between the diagnostics they do for that kind of stuff, endoscopies and things like that, they don't want you eating. So finally, one of those times when one of those incidents happened, they realized that we can't do something minor, and I had to have a major surgery. So I had parts of my stomach and small intestine removed, and I woke up with some different plumbing, so to say. It was kind of a bad it was somewhat of a non-elective weight loss surgery in a way. It resembled some bariatric surgeries, but I had already, lost some weight from not eating, and I was not really able to eat very much. I was really glad to get home. So that's kind of what set this up. Also in the hospital, while I was in there, they're just not great places to sleep. It tends to be loud, and I should mention that before any of this, I really didn't think much about sleep. It's just something that kind of happened. But as an adult, and my wife reminds me of this, I wasn't the best sleeper. To get 4 or 5 hours of sleep during a work week for me wasn't, something that wasn't out of the norm. And also as an adult, for whatever reason, if I was ever woken up or got up, I did have some trouble going back to sleep. And that's just been the last couple of years. So in the hospital, that gets, there's a lot of that. There's noise. They come in for some reason at 4 a.m. to take your blood and that kind of stuff. So I think that's where things started. And I was just scared because of what happened. Unexpected. And having some anxiety problems while I was in there, and told the doctors that, and I was given Ativan, which helped me sleep. And I continued that for a little bit coming out of the hospital, and I noticed when I was home for a couple of weeks that I kind of couldn't sleep without it, I think, which was probably a combination of the anxiety and maybe the meds. I wasn't on the highest dose, but I think those are the things that precipitated it. And in hindsight, now that I know about Daniel's work and our program, I was a little bit predisposed to insomnia. I'm kind of a type A person, problem solver,
Right.
fix it, get it done, which we learn about in the program. So
Sure.
I think that's pretty much mostly the beginning of how things happen with me.
Makes a lot of sense.
We have two. Yeah, we have 2 dogs, 2 older girl dogs, and my wife's always been a great sleeper. And what started to happen is I didn't have any problems falling asleep, but I would just wake up usually somewhere around 3 a.m, and maybe only sleep a couple of hours. Maybe it was earlier than that, and I just couldn't go back to sleep. And I was already kind of anxious because at this point, I had lost a lot of weight from the surgery, and the follow-up care. Listen, the hospital saved my life, and the right person was there to do the surgery that they did. It was his specialty, and I'm really grateful for that. But the follow-up care wasn't super. I had to find some doctors on my own to help with, when you lose a lot of weight, you have issues like related to malnutrition. I was anemic. I had thyroid issues, and so I developed some medical anxiety from the monitoring of that. Usually expect you get home, now you're gonna get better and you heal, and that didn't really happen for me.
You were thinking things would just normalize, and that anxiety.
Right. And so with sleep, I just remember I was already thinking what's going on with me, because, I didn't expect to have these other follow-up medical issues. So when I wasn't sleeping, I thought, well, number one, there's something wrong with me. I haven't found it yet, because this has never happened to me. And number two, it's probably related to these other things that had happened. And it was just scary, And I remember, again, never had experienced anything like that, but it was kind of strange. The dogs are kind of snoring. They're not in the bed with us, but in the room, and my wife is sleeping soundly, and there I am up wide awake. And I was already worried from all the other stuff that happened.
Sure.
So I had gone back to work part-time, and the sleep thing was an issue. I remember it was kind of good for getting ready for work. I had hours to do it, And I even remember my drive's a half hour. I remember getting drowsy in the car and getting sleepy. And I was like, where was this a few hours ago? Which I think feeds into what we learned about later on. But, it was just tough. And it was, like I said, it was scary. I was alarmed.
So now we're in 2024, right? Well, into 2024.
This had gone on for a couple of months, at this point. And I got on Dr. Google and tried to figure what's going on. I went to my doctor, forgot to mention that. And he was very helpful, my general doctor, but he also kind of admitted that he wasn't sure what the answer was. We tried some different meds and sleeping pills. And, I had a secondary infection in February and was just on a bunch of stuff, a lot of antibiotics, and antacids and stuff. And, that with the secondary infection, they wanted to make sure they kind of nuked everything. And I don't, just a lot of meds in general. And I just felt like whatever we tried, they may have made me a little bit drowsy. I didn't really like the side effects. I tried melatonin on my own. Never really liked how that made me feel. And the fact that those things didn't work made me a little more apprehensive.
Right. The hyperarousal goes up. And it's worth mentioning here that hyperarousal anxiety, when it's really high, can override the effects of any med, right? It really masks the sedative effects of a med. So just worth mentioning. Go ahead.
Yes, no, that's what was happening, which made me probably in hindsight more hyperaroused because
of course, because it's like, what if this isn't helping? Now I'm really messed up, right? Yeah.
So I found out about CBT-I, by going on the internet, and it's the golden standard, and read the book Say Goodnight to Insomnia, which I think is by the kind of the father of CBT-I. I think his name is Dr. Jacobs.
I think
and that was a little bit helpful because I learned, there was just overall, I have to say, for me, recovery, a lot of it was about education and then really just kind of putting some things into place and time. But the education was important. And my first bit of it was from, I didn't know that the 8-hour sleep thing was kind of a myth and that nothing really bad can happen to you from not sleeping. And that stuff was in there and it was helpful.
Yes.
What eventually wasn't so helpful was, I did subscribe. There was a paid program and you can for anyone that's done CBT-I knows about this, you fill in information about how much you're sleeping and when you get up and that kind of thing and send it in each week. And I was doing it very, very diligently. I was going to be a really good CBT-I student. I wanted to get better. I was scared, at this point. I felt like with so much going on, and on top of it, I felt like, well, if I'm not sleeping good, I'm not going to heal from all this other stuff that happened to me. And it just made me worried.
That's definitely the story the scared brain tells us. Yes.
Yes. So long story short, I had a similar experience with CBT-I as you did. And I know you've shared that with me. For 2 weeks, I slept a little better. Looking back, I think I delegated some stuff to that program, which took some stuff off of my shoulders. And I slept a little bit better. And I think it was after about 2 weeks, everything just crashed. And I was doing worse. And I even wrote that on the sleep chart. I never really got... I don't think I got a response. I think at that point, they said, well, something about like, well, you should just be going to bed at like 8 o'clock or something like that. And that wasn't even the point. The idea of a big tenet of that is if you feel like you're up for more than 15 minutes, get out of bed and do something that maybe will make you drowsy. That just didn't work for me at all. And it made me feel worse because I wasn't getting tired. I couldn't find the thing to make you drowsy. Putting away the dishes didn't work and laundry didn't work. And I was more upset because I felt like, well, what am I going to do now? I didn't have anything else. So at that point, we're a few months in and I literally Googled, why didn't CBT-I work for me? And I came across Daniel's material at the sleep coach school, and it was really cool and kind of revelational for me. And I don't think I had at first looked at some of the videos and content in order because basically from his earlier videos, which he was using CBT-I or using a lot of it, and over time tweaking it more and more to the current program, it was like a big aha thing for me, and I kind of binged it. And it was really exciting for me. And when I kind of saw where it was going, I also thought this can't be true. This has got to be a scam. I tried to find the holes in it, and I really couldn't. So not long after that was my son's college graduation, and I hadn't traveled yet. And we had 2 nights in a hotel, and I had no idea it was going to happen. And
we're in May now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the first night in the hotel, I slept well. And looking back, I think it's we had stuff to do. We were excited, I just think I didn't think about it. Slept great. It was super. And the second night, I couldn't sleep at all. And I think it was pretty much an all-nighter, one of my first ones. And I was scared and I was worried. And it was at 3 a.m. in the hotel that I booked my coaching session with you. Yeah, at that. And when we spoke, you had kind of filled in the gaps of what I had seen online. So I knew some of it, but I didn't know all of it. And it just made so much sense to me. And I felt like a weight had lifted off of my shoulders.
Yeah.
And particularly, so what are we talking about that we learn about in the Sleep Coach School program? Some of the main things are that, remember your words, you said, well, and I thought, and I feared that when I explained what was going on with me and kind of my history, and I got that, you were going to say, well, we can't really help you. You're too far gone. Because that's what I was thinking at the time. I was kind of anxious. I was kind of worried. I wasn't myself totally physically, and I wanted to get back on my feet, and I was in the graduation. It went okay, but I felt I was upset, that I didn't sleep great, I didn't want to take the focus off of what we were there for. And I was a little bit ashamed. So when you had said, well, yeah, we know what's going on with you. And before anything, you explained the beginning of your journey, which almost mirrored mine with CBT-I.
Yeah.
And I was just like, holy mackerel, there's someone else, and this isn't, I just to know that I wasn't terminally unique.
Yes, you weren't alone. Totally normal. Happens to a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah. And you had said, well, you've created this neural pathway where you believe there's a danger or a fear associated with being awake. And it's not true. We
call that conditioned fear response. Yes.
And you briefly outlined the solution, which was to slowly retrain your brain that it's okay to be awake. And a little bit for how he would do that. And I think you briefly described befriending wakefulness, and that I remember what a relief it was when I said, what do I do if I'm up? And instead of monitoring that 15 minutes, which how do you ever know if you're up for 15 minutes or not? And he said, you do whatever you want, as long as you kind of feel safe, and that it's okay if you don't go back to sleep. And I remember I asked her, I said, is it okay to play guitar?
Like, yes, that's great.
And you said yes. And so it was, that very night, I was on this routine where I had to go to bed before my wife, or I was a little worried and freaked out. She went to bed long before me. It's the first time. And I really played my guitar like I hadn't in a long time. I was just totally happy to get this info. And I just felt like, I don't know, I just felt even there that there's some hope here,
Yeah.
So I joined the immunity program pretty quickly after that. And I was on the yellow team. So now we're kind of in the during part of things. Yeah. I had I guess what we call a honeymoon phase where I initially had some better sleep. And I do want to say, I know that everyone's journey in this is different. And there are people that struggle longer and maybe worse than me. But I just feel like just sharing exactly what happened to me might be helpful, to others.
Yeah. Of course.
This honeymoon period of some better sleep. I don't know. I think maybe I was sleeping between 3 and 6 hours, but it was normally 4 or 5. And we got Daniel's book, which is phenomenal. The first time I read Set It and Forget It, all of the concepts are there to get you through this and to heal yourself. But for me, I tend to live in my head a little bit. And I thought that intellectually getting all the concepts meant I was healed. So, which I think that tends to come first, for people.
It absolutely does. Yep. We have to have that intellectual understanding first. Yeah.
And I binged the content. I was still binging some of the videos. And I remember every coach that I met, yourself included, one of the things that made me realize this program has so much benefit is, again, the success stories, because you can tell these are real people from all over the place. and sharing their stories and how they, recovered. But also just every coach that I've met, so kind, so supportive. And it just seems to be a vibe from all the people involved with this program, that just meeting them and talking to them in the program and getting the support and was just very hopeful for me.
Yeah. So you joined the immunity program sometime in May then, maybe.
Yes.
Okay.
It might have,
May 2024.
I think it was around there. It could have been a little earlier. It was April, May, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
So
after the graduation of your son.
Yeah. Now I remember, again, this is just my personality. I was I'm going to be the best sleep coach school student, and and when I heard coaches or in recovery stories, people talking about speed bumps and things like that, I thought to myself, oh, those poor guys, not me. I'm better. I read the book. I'm going to be better.
I've got this
right away.
Yeah.
That didn't happen. And in hindsight, I'm trying to remember the way to word this. I think what happened is I started to over monitor myself, and no, my sleep wasn't terrible and it was variable. I took it. I said, okay, I'm going to really fix it. And there were, as far as sleep efforts at this point, I didn't really think I had any, but I had sort of a rigid schedule. Like I mentioned, having to go to sleep early with my wife and having to go to sleep early. And I started to worry a little bit about, like, I don't know, eating certain things before bed. Would it help me? But more, I think I just started to overthink things and try to fix stuff maybe that didn't need to be fixing. We talk about this neural pathway that, you're afraid of something. Well, putting pressure on yourself is what I was doing,
I remember you saying you were trying to fix it on an intellectual level. And I think that was really key. Yeah.
And I wanted to be better, really badly. And I think that was putting some pressure on myself. I hadn't really had many all-nighters, and then those started. It kind of came out of the blue. Well, the first change, I had mentioned that I didn't have trouble falling asleep, but I would get up and never had trouble falling asleep. Well, all of a sudden that started. And it just changed to that, and it came out of the blue, and it was as surprising and startling as when I first had the issues.
For sure.
Because
super common.
And I remember I would come on and say, well, I'm getting worse. I'm not getting better. And I would come onto the call and say, well, this weird thing happened to me, thinking that people are going to say, well, that's never happened. You're like, nope, we've had that before. And then other weird patterns, like why do I always wake up between 2:45 and 3:15 or something like that? Nope, we've seen that too.
That happens a lot. Yep. This is all part of the process. Yes.
Things like that weren't, unique to the people that knew about it. It freaked me out, to be honest, because all-nighters were something I had not dealt with even at the start of this. And they were scary. One of the things, for some reason, like if I was up all night and then the sun came up, I don't know why, I dreaded that. And it made me feel, I felt, again, there's something wrong with me, and I was thinking at that point, like, even these really cool people in this really cool program, and I learned these great concepts there. It's just, I'm failing this. Like I failed CBT-I at first. So that was another little bit of a low point. But again, looking back, there was a lot. I remember talking with the coaches in the immunity program and yourself and sharing what was going on without realizing. They'd say, well, you realize you're really kind of tracking your sleep. And you're really chasing sleep is the term that we use, but it got bad. I was in a dark place at that point. I think for around a month, every other night, I didn't sleep.
I definitely remember that. And when you were in the program, that pendulum pattern, it just, it seemed to go on. And I had the same experience. So I totally was with you.
And again, I thought that was going to be something, and I thought I would be better by then. And, I had in my own head this linear path, and it was all going to be good. But there were, looking back, there were some lessons that I still had to learn and some things I had to face.
Yeah.
Around that time, there was the Oceana program started, which I was asked to join. And basically what that was is there were some coaches and training in Australia. So
Mhm.
because of the time zone difference, they needed people for them. And I was like, sure, I'll do this. And I remember I had started to really struggle and I thought, this isn't going to work for me. And I don't know what else I have now. And there was a call with the coaches, Natasha and Lori and yourself.
Yes.
And
Yes.
no one else was there on the call.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
the support that I got, and from these two people I had never met, and they're literally around the world in Australia.
Yeah.
And they were
Yeah.
so super kind and so helpful. Natasha's helped me a lot, on the call, and yourself as well. And I remember Lori at the time she mentioned, again, I was done. I almost didn't go on the call because I was just,
Mhm.
it's a dark
I
place.
remember that call very well. Yeah, you were in a hard place right then. I do remember.
Yeah, and I remember it was the summer, so it was really hot. I remember, even at night, we had a heat wave going on here. But I remember Coach Lori saying, she was referencing me. She's saying, future Patrick is going to look back at this, and I can see in you that you're going to get over this. And I didn't think I was going to at that point.
Yeah.
And all the coaches, saw that, they could
Yep.
see the seed in people of their recovery and what they're going to look
Yes.
like in the future. So that was really helpful.
Yeah. And I just remember from the beginning of that call to the end of that call, how different you were, right? Like with all three of us kind of supporting you and buoying you up. I mean, you left that call with gratitude, of course, but also some renewed hope, which was
Yeah.
really, really good thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So we started we had a trip. We went to Colorado. I'm in the Northeast, and this is kind of a quick, funny little story. It was awful. I didn't know that altitude, if you have altitude sickness, that one of the symptoms of that is insomnia. And
Well, we should probably correct that. Sleep disruption. Only how we feel about losing sleep can develop insomnia.
Yes, thank you. But what happened is friends of ours got an Airbnb. We didn't even really look into it much, and it was actually in altitude, and it was a home. It was really hot there too, no AC, and there was a really bright light shining in the window of our bedroom, and it was on a major highway. And my wife, who has no sleep issues, couldn't sleep either, and so that was
Classic
day
sleep
one.
disruption.
Yeah, and so looking back, it was almost funny, that whole situation. Well, we went to a concert at Red Rocks, and it was the next day, and it was so beautiful there, and it's such a beautiful place. It really didn't matter. It didn't matter that I didn't sleep well, or even at all. It just I was really, really tired the next day though. But that was we went on the trip, and it was just such a beautiful place. We ended up cutting the trip a day short. One of the last nights I didn't sleep at all again. Again, we were up in altitude and my dog was sick. And this is just a little side note. I came home and ended up somewhere during a trip called norovirus. We didn't know that it was norovirus. And with my gastro stuff, I called my doctor and he sent me to the ER. So they checked everything. And I'm thinking I was there all night and I could never sleep during the day at this point. And when I got home, so it was essentially 2 nights without sleep. I said, I'm going to be up again. I just passed out for like 6 hours in the middle of the day and all that. And that was a little epiphany. I just realized if your body needs to sleep, it's going to sleep.
Magical moment.
It was a little bit of a magical moment. The norovirus part of it wasn't magical.
That's a really bad one.
But I did remember that. Also, during the Oceana call, I met Christian, Coach Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And
love Coach Christian. Shout out to Coach Christian.
Coach Christian's great, and he's a really great teacher, and he's just super relatable and uses his insomnia experience to help you. I did a couple of one-on-ones with him during these bewildering, all-nighters every other night.
Yeah,
and I remember one thing from him, at one point, I was just real. It's debilitating when you go through this. I don't know. I felt like, I I didn't feel, again, at this point, like I felt like stuck, very stuck.
Mm-hmm.
I remember
Mm-hmm.
saying to him, I just want my old life back. And one of the things he says, no, you don't. He goes, that got you here. He goes, your life's going to be better. And again, he reinforced that he knew that I was going to get better. So, you know, some of what happened next involved, just surrender, just accepting it, just accepting whatever was happening. And I've got, you know, this big, whatever, big head, big intellect, and thought I was going to think my way out of this, and I wasn't going to think my way out of it. And I don't think really by anything noble. I don't really think there's anything noble on my part. It was literally just like, I give up. I totally surrendered. But the other thing the coaches said along the way a lot, which is true, every time I thought I went back, they said, you're not going to unlearn any of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't.
So true.
And it was a lot of discomfort, but eventually I just kind of let go, trying anything. And really, I think really caring that much about sleep. There was, you know, another thing that happened is I love fishing, and I had to go in the early spring. I wasn't physically ready for it. And the ocean's about an hour and a half from me drive. And I went on some trips, and I didn't mind getting up at 4 a.m, which we have to do to go on these boats, leave early, because my sleep schedule was great for it. And just psychologically getting out there and fishing was great. But sometimes some of the boats are, you know, they're big. They're called party boats. They can take up to 50 people or so. And it's pretty common that people get on the boat. It might take an hour or even more to get out to the fishing grounds. A lot of people just fall asleep. And I did.
That's awesome.
Kind of a cool sleep effort.
I don't think that's a sleep effort. I think that's just proof that your body can sleep, right?
Yeah. And so I did a bunch of those trips, and I'd get on the boat and fall asleep, and it was great. I was laughing. What a weird sleep effort, you know, get on a party boat. But it was another one of those things that reinforced that, you know, I can sleep. And just to get back out there in, you know, on the water and fishing, it psychologically was great for me. I think I slowly started to do more things. I was recovering physically, but I, you know, started to just take my life back. During the all-nighters when I was having them, one of the things I do in the morning is work out. I was just able to work out again. You know, not anything crazy, but you know, a few weight workouts and a stationary bike. And I remember, like, I was always able to do it, you know. And but I think at some point around a month went by, and I just wasn't really thinking about sleep that much, and I was sleeping. But I did kind of embrace the timeless sleep window and not really tracking it and all that. I would get up in the middle of the night most nights to use the bathroom, and most nights I'd fall asleep again. Maybe sometimes I didn't, and I didn't really care, because what I learned from the coaches in the program is that there's a big difference between feeling this took some time, but a big difference between feeling uncomfortable and being unsafe.
Yes. You know? Yeah. Good way of saying that.
Yeah. And so it just sort of, because of the combination of the learning and the concepts and the support and hearing other people in the program going through it, I don't know, it's some combination of just surrendering and going through some things and facing them, and time, you know. I just all of a sudden, like, it just wasn't something I thought much about.
Yeah. So how long were you in the immunity program? So what's our time frame?
I was in the program for 4 or 5 months.
Okay, that sounds about right. Yeah.
And the whole process was a little under a year. You know, it might have been 10 months or 11 or something like that. We had a night where my kids came home, and you know what? I think there's two things that were the last step for me. Realizing I was putting pressure on myself and monitoring things. But the reason I was putting pressure on myself is I had learned through this program, and even I had a super great therapist to help me with the medical anxiety and stuff, that I was hard on myself.
Yeah.
You know? And I didn't really realize that. And I remember reading it in Daniel's book, and I thought that was like some fluffy add-on, you know. And it turns out that was one of the last pieces for me. Reason
it was for me too.
Yeah. The reason I was putting pressure on myself to sleep. So sleep, what I learned in the program is sleep is a natural process. You know, your body's going to sleep when it needs to. By overthinking about it, being worried about it, creating this fear about it. And then towards the end for me, putting pressure on myself for not sleeping enough. The root of that pressure was being hard on myself. When I had an
Yes.
all-nighter, I felt like I failed.
Yeah.
Like I did something wrong. Like I
Mhm.
didn't, I felt like I wasn't even worthy of brushing my teeth when I got up, you know, like
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And the root of that was that I was hard on myself. So through my recovery, like I remember talking to you, to Coach Richard, to Christian, Natasha, Lori, like you guys were able to point that out, that being kind to yourself part, especially on a really bad night, is it's not an add-on. That for me was the last piece, and it took some time. But eventually that was a big thing for me at the end. About a month later, I just had some nights where I didn't sleep well. I got worried, and I wasn't sure what was happening. Again, a little bit. I was like, oh no, is this coming back? And I remember in the wee hours of the morning, you guys had just made a video. I think this was a few weeks ago or around a month ago.
Oh yeah, with Alina.
Yes,
my episode with Alina.
It directly addressed that. And Alina actually used the line, it might be maybe someone is sleeping well for a month and then they have a speed. And I had a couple of days that were pretty sketchy, but remember, I know what this is. I'm a little worried about it. It's just the hyperarousal. There's some residues of it, and I know I'm going to be okay. And I think it's been about a month or something like that since then. So is my sleep perfect? No, it's just not something that I worry about. There's some nights that I sleep great, like magical moment type nights where I sleep right through. And there's some nights where I get up and I'll go back to sleep, but it's overall just not something that I'm concerned about. And I want to thank you and all the coaches for that, because you guys are, to learn the immunity program, the stuff we're talking about it's intimate. There's people you don't know. You're talking about things like your emotions and pretty crappy at times. And this program is it's the real deal. So, I just want to thank you and all the coaches.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Patrick. And you're right. It's a very safe space. And going through an experience like this is incredibly vulnerable and humbling. And it is important to have support and a safe space where you can really get that support that you need. So thank you for that and sharing that. Such a good story.
Yeah, thank you.
So you graduated the program and things have been, going pretty well. And, it's interesting. And I think it's worth mentioning that when we go through this recovery process, and the speed bumps kind of come and go, and they trickle out at the end of the recovery. But then when we might experience one again, it can really like throw us a bit towards the end of recovery. Because that happened to me too. And that was when that self-kindness piece that you're talking about, it really somehow clicked for me during one of my last speed bumps. And I similarly to you was like, I don't really get this piece. And then towards the very end, it was like, oh, I'm beating myself up. I'm feeling like a failure for, not being able to sleep when that is out of my control. How can I fail at something that isn't within my control? Right. And so I started to see how that was keeping me stuck. Right. And that self-kindness piece finally clicked. So I think that was such an important point, and I really appreciate you mentioning that.
Yeah. Yeah. There was also along the way, I remember a big thing that was important for me is and these were actual words used by coaches in the program, like try to have the attitude of, oh, well, instead of, oh, no.
That is a famous coach, Richard. Yes. Oh,
yes,
well, instead of, oh, no.
Yeah, that was big for me. That was
it's such a good one.
Because I'm sorry, what we're talking about is it's a little bit of neuroplasticity, getting a new neural pathway, and it's also it's almost like exposure for like treating anxiety.
That's right.
Like facing what it is that is your fear, which isn't easy to do. But that's ultimately what it took. So what you're talking, like, so if you're being hard on yourself, oh, I can't believe you, it's really not possible to really experience the emotions and the experience that you're having, which
Yeah.
is which is the way they kind of dissipate, not
Yeah.
fighting it, not trying to
Yeah.
figure it out, but just almost just being there. So
Yeah.
and so that's why that was a big step for me, big step
Yeah.
to realize that, because it's not comfortable. Sometimes you don't want to face things that are uncomfortable, but there's the harder lessons are the more important ones, I think,
Mhm.
and the more valuable ones in the long run, because this is big stuff we're talking about. Like
It
we're talking,
really is.
yeah,
And
like
it ripples to so many other aspects of life, right? Like
yeah,
so beyond sleep. Absolutely. And
yeah,
another way we talk about that, oh no versus oh well, is this idea of cultivating neutrality. And we talk about that a lot in the program. There's an Allie's take on that you can definitely look up for some context as well. So such a good recovery story, Patrick. This is so awesome. And I really do feel like it's kind of come full circle, right? Since I was, with you in the beginning, and I'm so, it just brings me so much joy and happiness to see where you're at now. I really have to tell you that from the bottom of my heart. And we'll end with a couple of questions, which you're very familiar with because you've heard plenty of these success stories. But let's ask those now, if that's okay. The first one being, if you could go back to this past version of yourself when you were really struggling, kind of really in the depths of it, what would you say to yourself to give yourself a little bit of boost, a little hope?
yeah. I would say, have faith is what I would say. Have faith. In hindsight, I think I was kind of in the mindset of, why is this happening to me? And
Mm-hmm.
I would say to myself, have faith, and try to ask, instead of why is this happening to me, what can I learn from this? What is,
That's a good one.
what can I learn from this? And also that, even though there's a lot of discomfort and it's tough, that you're going to get through this. You're going to
Yeah.
get through this, and you're going to actually benefit from it. And I thank God that I did, because I feel that my faith, it was somewhere under there, and I think
Yeah.
it got me through. But yeah, that's kind of it. You're going to be okay. Going to be okay, and you're going to
Yeah.
actually not be okay. You're going to come out better.
Yeah. Oh, love that. That's so true. Well, you kind of already mentioned some of this in this and your answer here, but let's ask the other question anyway. The silver linings. How have there been silver linings for you having gone through this experience?
Yeah, a lot of them, definitely a lot of them. I feel like I did come out in some ways better. We're talking about NATO, right? Like, and I
Mm-hmm.
realized there was a lot of times, I would be on the calls, and I was thinking, like, I'm totally ADO. When I was down and out, I'm like, I was attached to the outcome. So when we're talking about, like, just listen, when you can, there's a lot, again, some of this is tough, and sometimes you can't accept whatever is happening at the moment, and that is okay. But
Absolutely.
but when we can fully accept what's happening, and over time, I think this helped me a lot with that. That flows over to other things too.
Oh, it so does.
Just accepting. I just feel like, after everything that's happened to me, where I wouldn't trade anything for what I got out of
Mm.
this. I don't,
That's huge.
like, I'm just so grateful for the things that I have in my life, people who love me, my family, and I see that more clearly. I just have I can have more gratitude for things, because I think that attitude of not being attached to the outcome. I'm still learning how to do it, but I feel like that's just applies to a lot of things. I don't get as upset about, not just about sleep, but just about really anything, like whether
Yeah.
politics or little. I see disagreements now that might have, I thought was more a big thing as trivial. I feel
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
what I've learned, you also learn more about yourself, about
Oh, so
really,
much because it's so much inner work.
yeah. So that self-awareness, and and being learning how to be kinder to myself. I want to be kind to myself.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that I was so hard on myself, and that's old stuff that I thought I didn't have to deal with anymore. And so I would say silver linings are just being really grateful and you're just learning how to be kinder to myself is something that is just I really treasure it.
Oh gosh, so well said. Thank you so much, Patrick. That I think is perfect and such a perfect note to end on.
Can I just say one other thing?
Of course.
I just would like to say that I wanted to thank Daniel for his work and creating this program, because I don't know where I would have been without it. And I told my wife this recently. We had our high school teachers. I know my wife since high school. I wasn't very studious in high school. It was kind of typical, high school student. But we recognized, especially when we're older, that our teachers were scholars. We had some really dynamite people, and they're just super intelligent. And I felt like meeting Daniel. I did get to talk to him one-on-one a couple of times, and reading his books, he reminds me of them. The way his books are written and the way he gets his concepts across. Number one, they're super helpful for people. That doesn't exist, I don't think. But also, they're so put together so well that the linguistic intelligence and the conceptual intelligence comes along. I'm just super grateful for that and for this program, because it's really helped me so much. And Daniel, I have to say, I met with him online, and I messed up the time. And I think I told you this story before.
Oh yeah, the last frog lab.
To retire as a teacher, a middle school science teacher, before all this stuff happened. And one of my last things I had to do was my frog lab, the dissection. And I have a separate room, kind of a walk-in closet, and there was a time mix-up, and I had to meet with him while the kids were in there, and they were just being, middle school students, and I had to go outside. So I had Daniel on the computer, and he took part in my last frog lab before I retired. One of the things that permeated this is I thought that there's no way this could end poorly, and he thought that was really funny. So thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, absolutely. We're all very grateful for Daniel for creating this program and helping so many people. And I agree with you that the coaches and the support and the whole program is just really phenomenal. So that being said, community, if you're watching and you find yourself needing some more support, we are here for you. Please check out thesleepcoachschool.com. We have wonderful programs, one-on-one support with all of the coaches. You can find that on the website as well. So thank you so much for being with us, Patrick, today and sharing your story. It really means so much to me. And we'll leave it there for now. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful week, and thanks for joining us.
Hi, it's me, Coach Daniel, and I hope you are feeling excited right now, because you're so close to the finish line of insomnia. And if you found that aha moment you've been looking for in this video, please share it with the world. Because insomnia can be such a lonely and isolating place before you find our community. Speaking of which, if you would like some more personalized support on your journey, then head over to thesleepcoachschool.com. We have free and paid courses available with certified sleep coaches who have seen the worst of insomnia, left the struggle, and now are ready to help you. If you decide to join, we look forward to seeing you on the other side.